On behalf of Bill number 34-0212, an act amending Title 28, Chapter 29, Section 660 of the Virgin Islands Code to include additional requirements for the notice and publications of lists of abandoned property. Kindly recognize the mic of Senator Alma Francis Heyliger.
Thank you. Good afternoon to morning to my colleagues, to the testifiers. I would like to say good morning to the central staff and the people of this territory. I rise to offer Bill 34-0212, and this is a piece of legislation that is attempting to modernize and bring into modern days the process and procedures of dealing with unclaimed and abandoned funds that is under the custodianship of the Lieutenant Governor's office on behalf of the government of the Virgin Islands. One of the things that when we attempted to craft this piece of legislation, it had a lot to do with making sure that people's ability to get access to the information in order to claim these funds is something that is readily available to them. According to how the law is currently written, the Lieutenant Governor's office, at least by the 30th of November on an annual basis, has to publish this information to the public. Unfortunately, due to shortcomings, whether it's for employee issues throughout the years, etc., this listing has not been published to the public for some 10 plus years. Unfortunately, at this moment, from having conversations, and I have to say thank you to the members of the Lieutenant Governor's office that worked with me through a few working meetings where we were able to discuss and hash out and have real conversations as to how this piece of legislation could move forward in a positive way to impact the people of the territory so that they can get access to their funds. I will say that the working meetings were positive. This process has been somewhat cumbersome as it has been going on for over a year, and trying to get at times basic information in order to move the process along has been a little bit difficult. But I hope today, after we discuss it and we have conversations with the Lieutenant Governor's office, we will be able to hash out and make sure everything is brought up to speed so that this piece of legislation will be able to benefit the individuals in the territory that has to utilize it to get their unclaimed funds. One of the major things for me has to do with access. When it came to trying to even find out the total amount, again, we did get some information from the Lieutenant Governor's office most recently as to the total amount that is in their trust account, which is from last year. We were told it was 13 million. It is now up to 15.9 million. And that is to the trust account. How the law is currently set up, the funds are to be deposited into the general fund with a minimum of $100,000 put onto this trust account. The trust account is up to 15.9, and we've had a very interesting time trying to get the amount that is in the general fund so we can get an overall total of how much these unclaimed funds are. So there might be some forthcoming amendments because we're also trying to have some conversations with the finance commissioner so that we can get an accurate amount of the total, because based on our working meetings, like I said, in the Lieutenant Governor's office, it is 15.9 that they have direct purview over, and apparently the bulk or the rest of the money is in the general fund, and we're trying to get a full accounting of it. So I will just ask my colleagues, those that are on their way and those that are here, to really just listen to the testimony, look at what we're trying to do in our attempts to modernize this process so that the people of this territory can get access to their abandoned funds. Thank you so much, Madam Chair.
Ms. Heyliger, you're recognized for your point of inquiry.
Thank you. Through the chair to Attorney Matthews, one of the questions that my colleague had asked specifically had to do with the maintenance of the funds, and you reference under the Lieutenant Governor's office. One of the things that was discussed that based on the VI code, a portion which according to the code actually, from what I read, the bulk of the money is in the general fund. Because what the code actually says, that the money shall be deposited into the general fund and a trust account shall be held by the Lieutenant Governor's office with a minimum of $100,000. You don't have that minimum. You actually have $15.9 million.
Correct.
Okay. Do you know the total amount of unclaimed funds, and inclusive of not only your trust account, but the amount that is in the general fund?
I would have to defer to Department of Finance on that question.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Senator Marvin A. Blyden, you're recognized for your 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon to my colleagues, listening and viewing audiences, staff, central staff. Good afternoon, testifiers.
Senator Alma Francis Heyliger, you're recognized.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon once again, colleagues. Good afternoon to the people of the territory. Good afternoon to the testifiers, central staff. Okay. I wasn't sure because, there we go. The first thing I wanted to ask, and this is a direct question to the Lieutenant Governor's office, Attorney Matthew. One of the things that I have been trying to ascertain is the total amount of the unclaimed funds. Do you guys on an annual basis either request of the finance department the total amount of monies that is in the general fund, since you guys are in charge of the unclaimed funds, or do they freely provide you with an annual update as to their portion of the money in the general fund?
I'm not aware of us requesting, and I'm not aware of them providing either.
So basically, we really don't know how much unclaimed funds is actually being controlled by the government based on testimony here today. Because even I, as a senator, I'm only hearing from your side for the 15.9 million. I have had a very difficult time trying to get the balance from the finance department. We had a working meeting where we made the request again. So hopefully we'll be able to get a total amount, because based on what is transpiring, it could be 50 million, it could be 20 million, nobody knows. It could be any amount. Nobody seems to be able to want to relay the amount of funding that is in the general fund. And based on how the law is written, the bulk of the money is to be deposited in the general fund. So I am very much concerned as to get this total, because if we're going to be passing this law in order to give people better access, I think it's prudent for us to also know the numbers that we're dealing with. Inspector General Office, Ms. Thomas, how are you?
I'm good.
Earlier when my colleague had asked you about potentially doing a quick audit to get the amount in the general fund, my office did submit a request to your office to assist us because we were having such a cumbersome time in getting information in order to do the people's work. And based on your response, and I just want to, share some excerpts, you did stress, as you may be aware, our office does not currently have an inspector general due to the recent retirement of Mr. Stephen Van Viebehold. Respectively, pending the appointment of an inspector general, we will have to keep your request on file until the newly appointed IG can address your request on behalf of the Office of the Inspector General. So when you shared with her that you could go ahead and do it, has there been an appointment of an inspector general, or has your office now been authorized to do things based, explain to me what the difference is then and now?
Delia Thomas. At the time the request came in, it was addressed to the Inspector General.
Okay.
And we were at a particular extremely busy time at the office that we would not have had the staff to even address it.
Okay.
So it's something the office can do,
Okay.
but based on our workload, it was just something that had to be tabled.
So as of this moment, has your workload eased so you could assist us with getting around a lot of this red tape that I seem to be encountering in order to get a total amount of unclaimed funds that is in the general fund?
Well, our workload has alleviated a little.
Uh-huh.
However, the perception that it's going to be easy is just the perception.
Okay.
I will not be able to know whether it will be easy or difficult.
Okay.
I just would say that an audit just encompasses more detailed work,
Okay.
and an inspection would be extremely focused, so the inspection is an easier process.
Okay. Well, one of the things I will say is we do have a budget process. And last year when I had my extensive exchange with the Lieutenant Governor's office and trying to ascertain this information, one of the things that was expressed to me is that even every time I kept saying, but if this is in the budget, part of your budget, it's in the general fund, it should be accounted for. And I was specifically told that there's nothing in regards to this in the budget. So I am very much concerned and confused that we have a general fund where I, as a senator, is told that there's no main accounting for all of these unclaimed funds in the general fund. And nobody to this date, in over a year, can give me a full accounting, inclusive of the trust fund and the amount in the general fund. So I'm going to say it again. I thank the Lieutenant Governor's office for sharing their portion, but we have no clue what the total amount of this money is. And I don't understand, if we have an accounting system through finance, why is it difficult for me as a senator to request, if you have a ledger or you have a separate account in the general fund, to say that these monies were deposited here because they are unclaimed funds? Why is it so difficult for me to get that number? So I am hoping that at some point we could get a resolution to that. I may ask a question, because I think they called my time.
Senator, you may proceed to wrap up.
Thank you. One of the things that we had discussed and you had shared earlier in regards to needing additional employees at the Lieutenant Governor's office. I know we're doing a budget hearing, and I'm going to ask you, do you guys plan on requesting additional employees during the budget process to assist with getting quite a bit of this work done? Because it's very concerning, that based on your workload, that the public has not been notified in over 10 years as to unclaimed funds being published. So some of them might not even be aware over the last 10 years that these funds might be sitting there.
Attorney Glendina Matthew, Interim Director. We had a conversation as recent as yesterday with the Director of Business and Financial Management, as well as the Chief of Staff, and they have indicated they will try to seek funding, seek some from somewhere, some source of funding to be able to at least get us a position. However, as you know, normally you submit your budget ahead of time, and it did not go in at that time. But they're going to work to see what they can do to get us.
Well, the beauty of coming to the legislature is anything could be amended. Okay. And if it's something you need to let us know. But thank you, Madam Chair, for giving me the additional time.
Thank you, Senator.
You're welcome, Senator. I just want to, with Senator Alma Francis Heyliger. Senator Francis Heyliger, you are recognized for your 5 minutes.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon once again to my colleagues, to the testifiers, to the people of the territory, central staff. One of the things that testifier Fox shared had to do with the number and percentages of voters and how this bill might affect, for example, for initiatives. I did pull up out of the Revised Organic Act, and it speaks to, for example, it says at least 10% of the voters of each legislative district, or 41% of all voters of the Virgin Islands, must be submitted to the supervisor of elections. And that's just an excerpt in regards to getting a percentage within the 180-day circulation. With this creating an active and inactive, would it really make a difference if the Revised Organic Act speaks to all, as opposed to active versus inactive?
Senator, again, good afternoon, and thanks for your question. It makes a difference with us doing our voting locally. Again, I said I didn't know clearly what it impact the initiative referendum, but I list them there. We are also talking about updating our Revised Organic Act, so that's something they could look at. But when we do our voting percentage right now, we submit our first request is the number of registered voters. If you look at our election report, it goes with a number of active voters. When I print out a statistical report each month, I print out active voters. So if they're inactive, they won't be shown. Just like if someone has a felony, they're suspended. If someone is 17 and a half, they're not an active voter yet until they turn 18. So these are all drop-down menus on the database. So when we do our certification at the end of the election, it tells you how much voters participated. And that's where this information is critical.
Okay. Economic impact. I know you spoke earlier in regards to this module already existing within the system. So would this have any kind of financial impact on the Board of Elections, or this is something that could be rolled out right away without any issues?
Well, we can roll it out right away without any issues. It's not a financial impact because it's already on the computer system. Okay. It's there. Bulk mail, we do bulk mail for elections, so we have that account. So that's the only cost, mailing out the letters.
Do you see that in attempting to do this in future elections, because I'm sure we might not be able to implement some of these things because it's 90 days after, et cetera. But do you think about additional manpower that might be needed at the polls? For example, you might end up with, say, 4,000 people inactive, and then they all show up to vote. And all of a sudden now you have to have these people filling out these forms and just to be able to vote in that election. Do you foresee any future issues in regards to that, or you just think it might be a smooth transition for those that might be inactive when they show up?
Well, you always plan for that 1%, which we said. And again, we've started to talk about this 2 years ago, so this is not new. And historically, usually when voters come off the rolls, many don't return.
Okay.
Whether they cancel, whatever, relocated, or they just don't want to vote anymore. So I don't see it as a huge, you will have some that show up, but it won't be 4,000. And even if they show up, it'll be spread to various voting centers or different dates. So we can handle the workload. Right now, we already started the process. That's why I could tell you the number that can be canceled between 2014 and 2018. All we're waiting for, the click from the governor, and because we want to see the statistics for the gubernatorial election instead of waiting until 2026. That's the issue. Because, people look at statistics, or percentage, where you get your voters from, where area. The voters in this area voted, 30% of them showed up or came out. So this is something that's been talked about for over 2 years.
Okay. Do you think that there would be any issues in regards to laws that are implemented within a 6-month period of an election, trying to get this done, if we get it done within the time period? Do you think there would be any kind of adverse effects in getting this accomplished in that time frame after the election? It's some 90 days.
Like I said, Senator, we don't agree with 90 days. We want to enact it 30 days from signing of the governor. So again, because 90 days from 2022, again, you won't see the results of that till the next 2 years for the senatorial election and the delegate, and then 4 years for the gubernatorial. And so you want to see your statistics in the year that's most voters participate.
Time.
Which would be the
This year.
gubernatorial year.
Correct, this year.
Thank you for sharing that. Madam Chair, thank you for the time.
Thank you so much, Senator Alma Francis Heyliger. You have a point of inquiry?
Thank you. Point of inquiry to the chair, to Supervisor Fox. I'm not sure if I had missed this because I had stepped out for a few moments. On page 2 of this piece of legislation, line 17, what I'm trying to find out is when it speaks to it, I just, let me see if I could read it quickly. It says, on this form, you must affirm that you continue to reside at the address at which you are registered, have moved within the same district, or have moved to another district within the Virgin Islands. Your registration status will be reinstated to active once you complete the voting process. Is anything going to interfere with filling out this form if, for example, you move from one house to another? Because what this is saying, you have to affirm basically that you're at the same location. And I don't want anything written here that could potentially stop someone from voting. So if they fill out the form and the information is not identical to what we're requesting here, would that potentially stop them from being able to vote?
No, Senator. That would mean that they will come into our office after the election and update their database. But they'll be allowed to vote at the site, similar to what we do now with the nomination process. If an address is incorrect, we give them 3 days to bring in the documents to update, which you're going to have to bring a lease, a WAPA bill, because we don't want folks just coming and changing their address willy-nilly. So you have to prove documentation. So you're going to allow to vote, and then you'll update your address, but it triggers you to come to our office.
Yeah, because I was a little concerned how it's written, because it says you must affirm. That means it has to be identical. So I didn't know if that would have triggered any issues for you, because, you know, once this is set in stone, it's the law.
Correct. But
Okay.
but also, like I'm saying, remember now they got 2 processes. You could do either the ballot or provisional. So you're still gonna be allowed to vote. That's the main point. So if we can't confirm, you won't do a ballot, but you do the provisional, and it'll be checked. And you come in and make sure you update your address, so you'll get to vote anyway.
Thank you for the answer. Move that bill number 34-0212. Yes, I am. Bill number 34-0212, an act amending Title 28, Chapter 29, Section 660 of the Virgin Islands Code to include additional requirements for the notice and publication of lists of abandoned property, be voted on favorably by this committee and forwarded to the Committee on Rules and the Judiciary for further consideration. I so move.
Bill number 34-0212 has been properly moved by Senator Alma Francis Heyliger, seconded by Senator Marvin A. Blyden, and I believe also seconded by Senator Novell E. Francis.
Yeah.
Roll call on bill number 34-0212.
Senator Marvin A. Blyden. Senator Blyden, yea. Senator Novell E. Francis Jr.
Yay.
Senator Francis Jr., yea. Senator Alma Francis Heyliger. Senator Francis Heyliger, yea. Senator Javon E. James Sr. Senator James Sr. absent. Senator Franklin D. Johnson.
Yay.
Senator Johnson, yea. Senator Carla J. Joseph.
Yes.
Senator Joseph, yea. Senator Milton E. Potter. Senator Potter, absent. Madam Chair, you have 5 yea and 2 absent.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Bill number 34-0212, an act amending Title 28, Chapter 29, Section 660 of the Virgin Islands Code to include additional requirements for the notice and publication of list of abandoned property has been properly moved and favorably voted upon in this committee and will be forwarded to the Committee on Rules and Judiciary for further action and consideration. Senator Francis Heyliger, you're recognized for your point of personal privilege.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. First, I just would like to thank my colleagues for their full support of this piece of legislation. It is a piece of legislation that is going to benefit the people of this territory as it relates to them being able to tap into getting information for their unclaimed funds. I hope as this moves through the process, we will get an overall number as to what the total amount of unclaimed funds we have here in the territory, in hopes of being able to allow for people to be able to get these monies disbursed back to them. Thank you so much, Madam Chair, for the time, and thanks again to my colleagues.